because the Lord your God will bless you in all your produce and in all the work of your hands, so that you surely rejoice. And I want you to underline verse 16 if you have a Bible. I don't know whether men carry Bibles.
We do.
Amen. It says 3 times a year, all your males shall appear before the Lord your God in the place which he chooses, at the feast of unleavened bread, at the feast of weeks, and at the feast of tabernacles. And they shall not appear before the Lord empty-handed. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord your God, which he has given you. I want to stop there. Somebody say amen to the reading of the word.
Amen.
The words of this portion that we have read Moses is speaking to men. He is talking to them as the heads of their homes. He is speaking to the Israelites as a nation. And he is speaking to them through the heads of the homes. And that's what men are. They have a responsibility to head their homes. And the Jewish people had 3 great celebrations. They called them feasts. When the families went before the Lord, rejoicing and glad because of the blessing of the Lord. And in this chapter that we have read, Moses is dealing with the feast of tabernacles. This is the feast that was celebrated after the harvest. Does anybody know what this feast connects to in the New Testament? Okay. This was a feast. Verse 13 says, and you shall observe the feast of tabernacles 7 days. How long was the feast?
7 days.
7 days. When you have gathered from your threshing floor and from your winepress. So that tells you this feast was immediately after harvest. And it says, and you shall rejoice in your feast, you and your son. I want you to pay attention. We want to see something here. It says, you, that means the head of the family, and your son, and your daughter, your male servant, your female servant, and the Levite, and the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow, all who are within your gates. So, this was like a family outing. Ask your neighbor, where do you take your family when you want to take them for an outing? Let me put it differently. This is a family holiday. So where do you take them when you want to take them for holiday? And this is not just an outing for a wife and a husband. It is a whole family. Everybody, including your servants, including your son and your daughter, your male servant, your female servant. Now you can tell these people are blessed. When you have got servants, it is a sign that you are blessed. So they were to get the whole family. And this happened 3 times in a year. How many times do we have a family time in a year? Now, these are the people of God. All right? They had 3 times that they went out and appeared before the Lord. These 3 times were family times. And they went before the Lord. The celebrations were done in Jerusalem. So they traveled from all over the nation. And they came to Jerusalem. For how many feasts?
3.
For 3 feasts. And they would come. And they would come and they would come before the Lord with the whole family, the son, the daughter, the servants, everybody that was part of the family went for this feast. And it was a 7 days feast. And it was a sacred feast. Now I want you to understand something about the Jewish people. Everything about a Jewish man, it revolves around their God. Why? I'll tell you why. Because the head of the family is the man. And the head of the man is God. I'll say it again. The head of the family is a man. And the head of a man is God.
Yes.
And this is something that every Jewish man, from the time when they are small, they learn from their father to honor God. Because every blessing that comes into that family, it will come from God. God was the center of everything in a Jewish family. And so, when they want to have a family time, they can't have a family time without the head of the family. They would not go for a holiday far away from where the seat of the head of the family was. So it was so important for them to go to Jerusalem, because Jerusalem was a place where there was the temple, and the temple was not like a church. You know, every time we talk about the temple, people's minds go quickly to the church. The temple was not like the church. The church, everybody walks in and they go and they sing and they pray and they worship God. The temple was not a place for people to go in. The temple was a house of God. That's what it was. And nobody went into the temple. Can I talk about that?
Yes. Yes.
Because I think it is important for us to understand our roots so that we can lead our families into the blessing of our God.
Amen.
The blessing of our God. And the God of the Bible is identified as the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Jacob is the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, which make the nation Israel. Now, the God who appeared to Abraham is the God of the Israelites, is the God of the Jewish people. And let's go to Deuteronomy, let's go to Exodus. I think I need to, this is Moses dealing with this thing. Exodus chapter, I think it's chapter 34. Yes, chapter 34 of Exodus. Exodus chapter 34, verse 10. And he said, behold, I make a covenant before all your people. I will do marvels such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation. And all the people among whom you are shall see the work of the Lord. For it is an awesome thing that I will do this, I will do with you. Observe what I command you this day. Behold, I am driving out from before you the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. Take heed to yourself lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land where you are going, lest it be a snare in your midst. But you shall destroy their altars, break their sacred pillars, and cut down their wooden images. For you shall worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is what?
Jealous.
Whose name is? I never knew God had such a name. For the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. Lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land and they play the harlot with your God, with their gods, and make sacrifices to their gods, and one of them invites you and you eat of his sacrifice, and you take of his daughters for your sons, and his daughters play the harlot with their gods, and make your sons play the harlot with their gods. You shall make known molded golds for yourselves, the feast of the unleavened bread you shall keep. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread as I commanded you in the appointed time of the month of Abib. For in the month of Abib you came out of Egypt. So the first feast was what? The feast of unleavened bread. How many days were they going to keep it? This is a remembrance of what? That's why I took you to Exodus. It is a remembrance of their deliverance from Egypt. It was celebrated in the first month of the Jewish calendar, which is the month of Abib. So the feast of unleavened bread. All that open the womb are mine, and every male firstborn among your livestock, whether ox or sheep. But the firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with the lamb, with a lamb. And if you will not redeem him, then you shall break his neck. Or the firstborn of your sons you shall redeem. And none shall appear before me empty-handed. 6 days you shall work, but on the seventh day you shall rest. In what? In plowing time, and in harvest you shall rest. And you shall observe the feast of weeks, of the first fruits of wheat, and the first ingathering at the year's end. So they celebrate the feast of unleavened bread in the beginning of the year, and they celebrate the feast of weeks in what? In the end of the year. Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay. Read verse 23. I think they're gonna put it on the screen. Read it loudly.
3 times in the year, all your men shall appear before the Lord God of Israel. For
Go on, for I will cast
out the nations before you, and enlarge your borders. Neither will anyone covet your land when you go up to appear before the Lord your God 3 times in a year. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifices with living, nor shall the sacrifice of the feast of the Passover be left until the morning.
Okay. So, the feast of the unleavened bread was a remembrance of their deliverance. Then they celebrated the closing of the year. And we are talking about the feast of what? The one we read in Deuteronomy is the Feast of the Tabernacles. Okay. The beginning of the year, the closing of the year, and the middle of the year. 3 times, a Jewish man with his family went before the Lord. Now, I read this to show you why God was the center of everything. Because when they are coming from Egypt, Moses wants to show the leaders of the families how they are going to live when they come in the land that God was going to give them. Yeah. Because the people that are living in that land are greater than them. They are stronger than them. They are better equipped. They could fight and destroy their families. And therefore they had to learn to depend on God. Because it was God who was going to deliver them from the hand of Pharaoh. They didn't have power to fight and defeat Pharaoh. But God was going to deliver them from the hand of Pharaoh. And therefore they were supposed to remember that it is God who brought them out of Egypt, and He delivered them from a power that they could never, in the wildest of their imaginations, defeat. And so they had to remember that. And then when they moved into the land, they were to remember that God has driven out all these great nations who lived in this great land and given it to them so that they can be blessed.
Amen.
He called them to bring them into the land so that they can be blessed.
Amen.
And He says, I will drive all these nations out of the land because of you. And I will give their land to you. And you will harvest from the land, and you will rejoice and come before my presence. These are men leading their families into the presence of God, and you will come before my presence at the time of the harvest, at the end of the harvest, and you will bring your family. And 7 days you will stand before me. 7 days in the beginning of the year, 7 days in the middle of the year, 7 days at the end of the year. They were going to come before the Lord. You see, today, if you tell men just to come to church, it looks like you're asking too much. How about asking them to leave their work 3 times in a year? 7 days, that is 21 days to be in a year, to be in the presence of God with their families. Today, this would be, you would look like you lost your mind. They say we don't have time. What do you have time for? Because when people say, I don't have time, it is actually a very clear statement that we don't have time for what you are asking, because time has never been scarce. There is always time. A day will never be less than 24 hours. So, when you hear people say, I don't have time, they're actually not telling you the truth about what they are saying. They are telling you, I don't have time for what you are asking me to do. It's not that they don't have time. They have time for other things. That means this is not important. So what was the first lesson? That a man, a leader of a family, a Jewish man, and to learn. He had to learn, number one, that he will never make it in life if he doesn't have God as his head. Amen. And therefore, they had to honor God by coming before God 3 times in a year. Leave all what they do. Prepare to take their families. That is going to cost money. And prepare to keep their families. They don't have a home in Jerusalem. To go and hire a place for their family to live in Jerusalem for 7 days. This will cause a lot of trouble in many families in America. If it was a requirement, it will cause a lot of problems. And we will say, it is not practical. This cannot work, you know, we have got bills to pay, blah, 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 all the things that you say. But this was part of their bills. It was in their budget. It was in their plan. And every man who knows he's a Jew had to appear before God 3 times every year. Why appear before God 3 times every year? To remember 3 important things about the Jewish life. Their deliverance from Egypt. Yes. To remember, it is God who gives them the harvest. And to remember that even the land where they are belong to other people. To the Jebusites, to the Hivites, to the Canaanites. But God drove out all these people and gave it to them. Why? Because he loved them. Amen. And then at the close of the year, they would come again before the Lord with a thankful heart, because the Lord has blessed them and kept them the whole year. Now, for me, this is one of the most important truths about family. Where else would you find a family that lives for God? Because This is the whole essence of the 3 times commitment. It was a feast. They went to enjoy themselves, but they went to enjoy themselves in the presence of God. While the women and the children are having a good time, then the men would go into the temple courts. They never entered the temple. They went into the outer court because the temple itself was not a house of men. It was built for God. It was the house of God. It was in a house of meeting, like a church or like a synagogue. It was the house of God. I know I'm talking to Gentiles who have become believers in the Lord, and we don't have this concept. The temple, when we say it's the house of God, we think about the church. The temple was absolutely, totally the house of God. No meetings were done there. I know you are thinking, and where was the people that Jesus was chasing in the temple who were exchanging? You say, oh, they were there. They were not inside the temple.
Yeah.
The temple and outer court, which was the place where people came to worship the God who was in the temple. Only the priests entered the temple to do the priestly services. That was to make sure that the light in the house of God was on, so they would fill the house with oil, so that the house of God does not get dark. But they only did that in the holy place, which was the outer court, the holy place. They went there. The priests went there to make sure that everything was in order. But the Holy of Holies, the inner court, nobody went there. Only the high priest, once in a year. And he went in there to represent the people and the nation, carrying the blood of atonement. It was in this feast that I am talking about. And it is the same time that Jesus was offered as a sacrifice for our sin.
Amen.
And the fathers bring their sons and their daughters. 7 days they are coming to the temple every single day, and they come with an offering. They don't appear before the Lord empty-handed. By the time you are through with this, when you are growing up as a small boy, by the time you are ready to get married, you are already as straight can be as far as the worship of God is concerned, because your father cannot leave you behind when he goes in the presence of God.
Wow.
Your daughters will never live like other daughters of the world. Why? 3 times in a year, 7 times of that time, they are before the Lord. They straighten up as straight can be. And God tells Moses, tell them that when they come to the land, they will not make covenants with the people of the land, because I am making a covenant with them. And it is a covenant of blessing. And therefore, they will not give their daughters to the sons of the people of the land. They will not make any deals with the people of the land, because that will make them to compromise their commitment and their dedication to me. So they begin to play harlotry. With their gods. That means they begin to do stuff in honor to something else other than to honor the honor of the God who has done all this to them. Now, the failure of a man to lead his family into worship has caused the crisis that we have in the world today. We talk about culture, and we are influenced so much by other cultures. Just a short time living away from your culture, you forget yours.
That's right.
2,500 years. Over 2,500 years. The Jewish nation was scattered among the nations. 2,500 years scattered. They never lost their culture. They never lost their worship. They never lost their language. Show me any other nation that would be scattered all over and they don't lose and they don't become like the people where they are living. Show me. When you come to America, showtime, you speak like the Americans. You behave like the Americans. You do what the Americans do. Your children become Americans. Not just by nationality, but by behavior and by everything. So if you move them from here and take them to another nation, they'll be confused.
That's right.
By the time they grow up, they don't know who the Jewish child is. A Jewish child, whether they are in America or they are in Europe or they are in Asia, take them anywhere. Why? Because there is something called foundation. And if the foundation is destroyed, then there is nothing. Everything else standing will not stand. It will be shaky. It will have no future. Because the foundations are the most important thing. This is the foundation of the people of God. Worship of God. The closest to the Jews I don't know whether you are ready for this. Is the sons of Ishmael. Where Muhammad comes from. Okay? They are the most, besides the Jews, I have dealt with both. They are the most established people in faith. A Christian today can be. There is something about a father which is so important. They say if the head is sick, the whole body will be sick. The lack of fatherhood in the home has made the homes dysfunctional.
Yes.
You can check. So instead of me giving you a lot of information that you can get for free from Google, let me stay in the word and just help you to go and Google.
Sure.
Because you can get all that information for free from Google. Check how many people in this country are in jail. When you know how many they are, check the percentage of the people in jail in America who are born in a single family. I'll help you, they are the majority. The jails would be empty if the fathers would father. No amen.
Amen.
But I am speaking out of a heavy anointing.
Amen.
And when we fix the problem of a man, we have fixed the problem of a family. When men get busy, that they don't have time with God, then the next thing that happens is that they will never have time with their families. You didn't hear what I said. It doesn't, it begins with who you are under. What is the highest authority over your life? If God becomes the highest authority in your life, it takes the first position in every decision you make. It takes the first position in everything that you do. It comes first in how you run the affairs of your family.
Yes. Amen.
Now, when that is not happening and you are calling yourself a Christian, you will not but look like everyone else. That's why in the church we have got divorce today. Divorce is one of the things that God says, I hate.
That's right.
Oh, God. He says, I hate it. So, when a man who is born again, who worships the God of heaven, is divorcing his wife, what does that tell you? It tells you he has no total subjection to the one who is supposed to be his head.
Amen.
And I know this is happening with pastors. I really don't care who it is happening to.
That's right.
Who is your model? And who is the model of your children? When they grow up, who do they want to be like? Is there anything that you are doing to influence your family so that your family is like Joshua's family?
Yes.
You can stand up at your old age and ask people, who will you serve?
That's right.
Choose today. But for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
Amen.
Joshua didn't say me. He said me and my family and my house. Why? Because he had brought up his house in that way, which is just what I showed you. 3 times in every year, going to appear before the Lord with the whole of his family. The young children, they don't say, oh, we're going to play with our kids. No, no, no.
Yeah.
We are going before the Lord. Every year, 3 times. When these children grow up, how do you think they will bring up their family? They will bring up their family in the same way. How will they ever turn away from the way they have seen, working and bringing blessing in their family? Never. You know, when I meet a Jewish child, I was in Florida just a few days ago. Walked into this store and we find a young lady. She was Jewish. We start talking. Then we try to invite her to church. She smiled. She said, I'm a Jew.
Yeah.
I go to the synagogue. I said, oh. So I wanted to find out what kind of a Jew is she. So I asked her, do you go to Jerusalem? She said, I just came from there with my family.
Wow.
So I knew. Because this time they are just coming from the celebration I am talking about. They had come from there with a family. Because a father will take his sons and his daughters, will take everyone that works in that family, because if they are working there, they may influence your children in the wrong way.
That's right.
So they must believe in the God you believe, and they must live in the standards that you have set for your home.
Amen.
They must not be like strangers. When they are in your house, they must sing the song that are sung in that house. They eat your food, they are under your roof.
Yes.
Amen.
Amen.
Then they have no choice. You know, we are living in a world, everybody has a choice. This is not the way God ordained for things to be. God ordained for people to be led.
That's right.
Not for every child to have a right. I know I'm going against everything that you are hearing in this nation, but I am not a spokesman of the systems of men. I am a spokesman of the systems of God.
Amen.
And these systems that have been set by men are causing so much havoc that a father has got no authority over his children.
My God.
That he has no authority over his wife. But you know what the problem is? You cannot exercise authority unless you are under authority.
Yes.
Otherwise you become a dictator.
That's right.
So he submits himself first to God.
Amen. Amen.
He is under total authority of Jehovah. He does not turn to the left or to the right. He stays focused to what God says so that he may raise up a godly family.
Amen.
You want honor? You honor God, you will be honored. You want respect? You respect him. You will be respected. You want blessing? You bless him. And you will be blessed.
Amen.
Everything
Hallelujah.
about life circles around God.
Yes.
Do you wonder why today Islam is the fastest growing religion? You wonder why? Because Islam has borrowed the traditions of the Jewish people, because Ishmael was brought up by Abraham. And he was taught the disciplines of the Jewish people. And so, when they go to pray, their children,
Yeah. That's right.
5 times they wake them up.
My God.
And the young boy and young girl learns to say, Allah is great. That's the first thing they learn to say when they speak. And when they grow a little bit, they are taught how to commit and to make a declaration. They hit their chest very hard. 3 times. And they cry out, Allah is great. What do our children say when they begin talking? What is their focus when they are growing? We tell them education.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the first thing. For you to succeed, you must be educated. You must do well with you. And you can do anything to make sure that if it's time to go to school,
Yeah.
they will not miss school for anything. But if it is time to go to church, they can have an excuse and you will not bother.
My God.
It is okay. Baby is not feeling well. But when it is school, they must be checked by the doctor for the doctor to say they are not fit to go to school. We have lost it. We are raising children having wrong priorities. When God comes first, then it becomes easier to do other things. Education becomes easier because they are not being distracted. Success becomes a guarantee because they are not going to be corrupted in their thinking. You don't worry about their focus because they are already, from when they were small until when they are grown up, they already have a focus. What is it that is stopping us from doing this? Is because we were also brought up by fathers who were telling us the most important thing is education. Your success is going to come from education. It's not, you were not taught to believe God. And you know, one of the worst things, one of the biggest problems that the church is facing today is faithless men. It is unfortunate that the women in church have more faith than the men in church. There are more women in church that are totally depending on God than men. Go into any congregation, I don't care where it is, in America, anywhere, or in all the states. Check out the numbers of the people who are in the service on Sunday morning.
That's right.
Majority are women. And when you go to the midweek services, oh my Jesus, if you find a man, it's a miracle. But the women will be there.
Yes.
Now who has bewitched us? We are not leading. And if we are leading wrong. No, amen. Thank God it is only pastor who is a woman here. And she is not sitting here as a woman. She's sitting here as a pastor.
Amen.
I'll tell you this for free. The future of the church is now in the hands of women. And that is a disgrace to all of us men. I'll close by telling you a story. It's in the Bible. Do you know this lady that was called Deborah?
Yeah.
Deborah was a prophetess. And she speaks to the commander of the armies of Israel, says, the Lord is with you, go and fight,
That's right.
and you will win the battle.
Yeah.
And the commander says,
Uh-huh.
are not going to go unless you go with us. Deborah says, if that happens and you win the battle, then the glory will go to the women.
That's right.
And for sure, they went into the battle and they won the battle, and the men were the fighters, but the glory went to the women. Hear me. We have a lot of Deborahs today. They are worshiping God. They are the greatest givers in the church. I'm a pastor, for your information. They are the tithers. They are the givers. They are the prayer warriors. They are the ones that are available. They are the leaders of praise and worship in the churches. Pastors have to take men and put them in position just to balance. Otherwise, if they were going to go by commitment and dedication, there will be no man sitting in a board of any church.
Right.
This is a fact. But they put the men there to balance the question. Because the man has lost his place with God. When we lose our place with God, we also lose our place in the family. We lose our place in the society. And it doesn't matter how high you go in the society. It doesn't matter how much money you make. When God blessed Abraham, Genesis chapter 15, Abraham asked God a question. You blessed with all these things. Who is the heir? This Eliezer of Damascus will be the heir of all what you've given to me. Abraham was concerned about passing the inheritance to the next generation. If we don't raise up our children, who is going to be our heir? If we don't raise our sons and our daughters, you are going to be, your daughter is married to who? So you are a father to her. And who is the husband? Where do they come from? They are your in-laws.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So who are they? When your son grows up and gets ready for marriage, who is he going to marry? And who is going to be your in-laws? When we don't think about inheritance, then we live a selfish life. When we don't live for our families, then I can say we are living a superficial life. Because when you grow old and you die like Abraham, it is your sons who are supposed to bury you. Not a community. Your sons. And when you have no impact over their lives, what do you think will happen when you grow old? Just like you forgot them when they were growing. Now they have grown, and now you have gone where they began. You have become like a child, because now you need help. The same way you neglected them, you forgot them, they will forget you. And you just need to look at this society and see how people finish their lives.
That's right.
With all the wealth and everything. I'll never forget, I went to pray for one old man. And he had everything you could even see. A big home, fully paid for. And when he reached the age that he needs help, his sons, this guy had a big farm, took him to what used to be the servants' quarters. That's where I went to pray for him. He is living there. The big house is empty. And the sons are waiting for him to die that they can sell off this wealth that this man had. I looked at how filthy that place looked like. And I shed tears. I said, Lord, I should never grow old to be like him. And his sons are saying, we have hired a nurse, they're actually nurses, to take care of our dad. And they would suddenly come there. I asked the nurse, how many times do these children come here? Maybe once in a month.
Jesus.
Their father is sick. Sleeping on a filthy bed in a servant's quarter. The main house is breaking with cobwebs and everything. So beautiful, empty. And they say, we don't want to pay the bills for heating and everything for that big house. So they put it in a small little place. I said, Jesus was absolutely right. What will it benefit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? I saw. The Bible says it is better an end of a thing than the beginning. How do we end our lives? Will our children be proud that they can even take off from their place of work and say, I'm going to spend time with daddy and mommy. I'm going to give them the best life as they close their life here on earth, because they are my role models. They brought me up, they taught me. I wouldn't be anything if it were not for my dad. Would our children talk like that? And this all is not because of the mothers, it's because of the fathers who gave birth to children and And that was the end of the story. I pray for my children every day. I have got a lot of stuff to pray for. But my family, God comes first. Then after God is my family. Then ministry comes number 3. For me, ministry will never take care of me. Ministry needs me now when I have an anointing and I'm full of strength and everything.
That's right.
But when I will not be able to preach and do what I do, then it is my family, not the church. And we forget this. And we fail to give them their rightful place in our lives. I shared with you about a Jew because for me, the God of the Bible is the God of the Jews. And for me, I learn more from the Old Testament about life more than from the New Testament. In the New Testament, we see the move of God through his son Jesus Christ. In the Old Testament, we see the practical ways that God intends for his people to live. So I teach a lot from the Old, because in the Old is the foundations of life. Who are the givers? If you don't understand the blessing of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you can never be a giver. Never. Abraham comes into the promised land, and what does he do? The first thing that he does is build an altar. A family without an altar is a disaster. It's a second between Ai and Bethel. He builds a second altar, and there he calls on the name of the Lord.
Yes.
This was the place where he built his dwelling. Then he did another altar in Hebron. And even when he went out of faith and went into Egypt, he comes back. And when he comes back, where does he come? To the place of the altar. Worship, worship, worship. If you cannot, as a man, connect with God, if your prayer is shallow, you don't pray until you get a breakthrough. Get yourself off from your place of work and take 7 days. Say, I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to connect with God. And I guarantee your story will change. If you are a businessman, your story will change. God will begin to show you how for you to be a good man. Because a good man will leave an inheritance to his children's children.
Yes.
I tell people, my grandchildren, before they finish grade 8, they will all be millionaires. All of them. My grandchildren. Not my children, my grandchildren. Why? Because I'm a good man.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
And I hear the Bible say he leaves an inheritance. I buy shares for them. All of them right now, they have got shares worth a lot of money. By the time they grow up, they have got an inheritance from their grandfather. Because I'm a good man. And I want to be a good man and leave an inheritance to my children. Where do you get that wisdom? That wisdom comes from God. There are a lot of people that don't even live alone their grandchildren. They don't even live alone. They don't think about their own children. The other day, my son works with me, or my two sons, both of them work with me. And I went, he wanted to buy a car. He said, Dad, I want to buy a car. So I said, okay, let's go. How much money do you have? Blah, 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 blah. Then we went and I say, which one do you want? He said, this one. I say, pick it, take it. He said, I don't have money. I said, don't worry. So the guy selling says, under whose name is this car going to be? I said, under his name. He said, Dad, you buying a car for me? I said, you're my son. You're my son. You're my son. I can do anything for my children, my grandchildren are supposed to inherit from me so that they can have a double portion from their father and from their grandfather. That's what a good man is supposed to do. And that will happen when men understand that riches and wealth don't come from hard work, they come from God. And when you connect with God, God will teach you how to make profit. He will teach you how to prosper.
Amen.
So that you don't waste all your life looking for money.
That's right.
Amen.
Money should begin looking for you.
Amen.
You know, I say in our congregation, whoever will beat me in giving, I will take a leave to go and ask God what is wrong with me. I am number one giver in our ministry. Why? Because I'm raising sons. I want my children, both physical and spiritual, to learn the principles of prosperity, the principles of living a healthy life. You don't have to depend on all the drugs that are being invented. You can live and go to the hospital. The other day, I think it was on Tuesday, I went, I just felt, I haven't had anybody check my eyes for a long time. So I decided to go for them to check my eyes. So I wrote my age on the doctor's thing. So he checked everything, and he said, everything is so nice. He said, it's 2020.
Wow.
So he says, but I want to prescribe some glasses for you because it looks like you live in very hot places. And doctors, he said, you need to put on glasses because your eyes are like the eyes of a young man, but you need to take care of them. I said, wow, I like when doctors talk like that. That they have to confirm that there is something God is doing in my life,
Amen. Amen.
which flesh and blood has nothing to do. You keep us in good health, He will bless us materially.
Amen.
And He will make us the head and not the tail, above only. So that when we walk home, we receive respect from our children and respect from our wives. We come home and they say, Daddy has arrived.
Amen.
And when they are growing, they say, when I grow up, I want to be like Daddy.
Jesus.
They don't begin to admire a celebrity somewhere who doesn't even fear God, who doesn't even know God, and that's their model. It is their role model. You know, I want to be like Madonna or something. My children, they need to desire to be like their daddy, full of faith, full of life, so that they say, whatever daddy does is what we want to do. Wherever daddy goes, that's where we want to go. Stand up on your feet, lift your hands, and take a minute.